amigos, bienvenidos a 18 minutos. Tendremos un gran programa el día de hoy que será sobre cómo ser un rockstar en los negocios. Pero antes, déjenme presentar aquí a mi amigo Mauricio.
Encantado de estar nuevamente con ustedes, Paco, contigo en particular. Y efectivamente un programa lleno de ritmo hoy y vamos a ver cómo aplicar ese ritmo en las organizaciones, ¿no?
Así es, Mauricio. Yo soy Francisco Rodríguez Aguirre, presidente Smart Speakers, el principal buró de conferencistas de Latinoamérica. Mark, it's great to have you with us, and let me just introduce you. Mark Schulman es uno de los bateristas más célebres de rock de figuras como Pink, Billy Idol, Foreigner y Stevie Nicks, entre otros. También es un célebre conferencista del libro Conquistando el pánico escénico en la vida y autor de este libro. Mark, it's great to have you with us. How did you start being a musician?
Great to be here with you. Thank you so much. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
That's important.
Yes. So, how did you start being a musician? ¿Cómo empezaste siendo un músico?
Well, as the story goes, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan when I was probably 2 years old, and I saw John, Paul, George, then I saw Ringo, and something moved me deep inside. And then I saw all the screaming girls, and I thought, I want that! Then I asked my mama, Mama, I want to play drums, I want to play drums. And she said, no, can't you play a nice instrument like your brother Randy? He plays violin. So I was at my brother Randy's violin lesson, and I saw a big violin in the corner, ended up being a cello. I started playing cello. But my godfather was our teacher, so he used to give me a drum lesson at the end of every cello lesson. And my parents could not deny my passion. By the time I was 9 years old, they bought me my first drum set. I started playing in a band right away. By the time I was 12 years old, I started playing professionally. And all I ever wanted to do was play drums. Even though my parents said, you're so smart, you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be a dentist. And I went to college and I quit college to play drums full time. And then I started making money and they said, not a bad decision. And so I toured with all of these amazing artists. But I've also always been an avid reader and interested in philosophy and self-improvement. And I did a lot of music clinics. And I realized at some point that people were resonating more with my stories and my success coaching than just the drumming. And that's when I decided I could transfer that formula to colleges and corporations and still use the drums. And that's when I created Hacking the Rockstar Attitude, which I call a rock show disguised as a keynote, in which I've used all of the philosophy that I've learned. I've written 2 books, and now I perform drums and I speak. So I have the best of all worlds, and I've actually quit touring. I was with Pink for 15 years, and I stopped touring. I quit the band last year because I decided that I wanted to speak full-time because I could be of greater service if I speak full-time and I get to play drums. And it's literally like a show, what I present, as opposed to just a keynote.
Mark, as you know, many business leaders are watching our program on a regular basis. And for me, teamwork is critical when talking about organizations, success, and effectiveness within these companies. Also for me, an example of a perfect teamwork is a band, as the ones that you have belong to. Tell us something about the mistakes or the successful performance that you have experienced, how you manage those, particularly the mistakes, learnings, etc., because the band is a perfect example of a teamwork doing something really great.
Well, I have had certain situations myself, such as, when I perform with Pink as an example, everything is done to SMPTE, which is a time code. So that means all the lighting, all of the aerial stunts, all of the video is all done perfectly in sync. So I need to be hearing a click track, metronome that I can play along with. And there have been a couple of times where my pack, in other words, the pack that sends me my audio to my ears, has gone out. And I'm responsible for keeping time for everybody. And there's 25,000 people watching, and Pink is spinning around doing death-defying stunts. And if I lose my pack, I can't hear a thing. So that has happened a couple of times, and I immediately look over at the musical director and mouth to him, or I look at my drum tech and I say, I can't hear. So the musical director will start doing this to give me the tempo so I can still play in time with the tempo. But what I realized is the more I panic in those situations, the more my propensity to speed up and to lose my tempo. So I have to do exactly the opposite of what my instinct is. My instinct is to rush and to speed up. What I do is I've taught myself to relax and to stay positioned for the team, for the band. The more I relax, that I can actually stay in tempo. They can figure out what's wrong with my pack, which they do. It's usually the batteries will have gone dead. The drum tech is behind me changing the batteries, and I'm just watching the musical director, and I'm relaxing as much as I can, in spite of the fact that my tendency and my intuition is to rush because I get so unnerved by that experience. So that's an example of what has happened to me. There have been examples of what have happened to Pink and to Cher, but those are longer stories. But the band is such a great metaphor for all teams, because no band, whether you're thinking of the Beatles or the Foo Fighters or the Rolling Stones or Imagine Dragons, no band could have had the magnitude of success without any or all of its members. It's truly the combined effort, influence, intelligence, and engagement of every member that creates a sum that is greater than the individual parts. And that's why it's such a great metaphor. And I even talk about the fact that my daughter, my 13-year-old daughter, when she was 7 years old, she said, "Daddy, it's amazing. I can pretend like I'm performing with whatever I do, and it's so much more fun." And when she said that, she changed my life, because I realized if we all pretend like a pitch meeting or a presentation is a performance, then we become more engaged. And there's a lot of talk about employee engagement and individual engagement. And so if you could actually view what you do like it's a performance, like you really are on stage, because you are essentially performing. We are all performers. It's such a great metaphor. You become more engaged, you have more fun, and guess what? You perform at a higher level. You are more spot on. That's one of the main components, one of the main metaphors where music and teamwork and business come together.
Wow. Great, Mark. What are the most difficult times in a concert?
When something like that goes wrong. An example, I'll give you a quick example. I'll be as quick as I can with this. I was playing with Cher. We were doing, it was the third show of the first Cher farewell tour. We were all on stage, and Cher was on her platform. The platform was shaped like a chandelier. The chandelier was modeled after a chandelier from her very own home. And the curtain was up. The platform was going up. And the band breaks into the opening song. And when it hit 40 feet in the air, the curtain drops and Cher starts singing, but I can't hear her singing. And I think maybe her microphone is out. But I see the platform coming down, and I think everything's okay. And then one by one, all the band members stop performing, and they're looking back in horror. And the audience is looking up at her like, "Oh my God," like, "Oh my God." And finally, because my view was obscured because I was so close to her, I saw Cher was not on the platform. The platform came down. Cher was dangling from the truss behind the platform from the little safety harness that was there to keep her on the platform. But because of an overactive air conditioner, the platform got pushed up against the truss, and she was dangling, and all I saw was little dangling Cher feet, and it was so scary. And they realized all they could do was bring the platform up, and she would have to unhook herself, and then they would bring the platform down. So they brought it up very slowly, and the audience was silent, the band was silent. She unhooked herself, she got on the platform, she came down, and then they had all these people escort her off the stage, and I saw she was petrified. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I bet the show is over. Then I thought, I bet the tour is over, because let's face it, Homegirl doesn't need the money. And then we were stuck on stage not knowing what was going to happen. So I finally grabbed my stick bag and I was about to jump off of the drum riser because I thought the show was done. And Cher comes running out from behind the stage with a microphone in her hand and she says, "Let's do this." And we started the show over and she played the most electrifying performance of her life. And that's when I realized we cannot control what happens to us, but we have the power to control our attitudes about what happened to us. And Cher could have stayed off that stage, but instead she chose to come back on that stage. And as a result of that decision, as a result of her attitude, that ended up being nearly a 3-year tour, and that was the highest grossing tour in pop music history. She grossed nearly $350 million because she shifted her attitude and made that decision in the moment to get out there in spite of the fear. And that is what a great performer does.
Great.
Great. Really, there are some lessons there that I am writing down, Mark. Thank you. I know that the title of your keynote as a speaker is Rock Show Disguised as a Keynote. Tell us
No,
something about that.
that's
What's
not right.
behind it?
But my title is Hacking the Rockstar Attitude.
Okay. So tell us something
And
about that. What's behind this concept? Of course, you are sharing your experiences like those that you have already shared with us. But tell us something more about this.
well, the story I told you is a perfect description and example of why attitude is so critical. Your attitude is your foundation. It's what you see. It's actually not what you look at, it's what you see. It's your perspective. And what is so amazing about attitude is you have the power at any moment in time to change, shift, or choose your attitude. And all that takes is a decision to choose an attitude that serves you. And I know that sounds simple, but we are all action takers. And every time you make a decision to take an action, when you make that decision, you truly make a decision, you are cutting off all other possibilities, which gives you power, which gives you an incredible perspective. And this is what is so amazing about attitude. Your attitude is what drives your behavior. Now think about the power and the implication of that. So by shifting your attitude, you are changing your behavior. And one attitude can drive many behaviors. And your behavior is what drives the consequences or outcomes of your life. And think about that. So one behavior can drive many consequences. So it's A, B, C, attitude, behavior, consequence. So I've learned that I can shift my attitude. And what I do during my presentations is I show the audience how you can do an immediate attitude shift that will drive different behaviors and allow you to create consequences that you never dreamed imaginable. And I tell stories about Cher and about Pink and about Billy Idol, about how their attitudes have literally formulated their success. And some of my own experiences, like when I had cancer and how I dealt with my own experience with cancer. So attitude really is everything. And that is the success of all the rock stars. So I show the audience how to have more rock and roll swagger and use the examples of these great top performers to show everybody how you can shift your attitude to change the outcomes of your life. And that's why it's called Hacking the Rockstar Attitude.
Great, Matt. How does your emphasis on a world-class performance relate to engagement?
As I said earlier, we all have the capability of looking at anything that we do as a performance. So say you're going to talk to a client. Say you're going to give a pitch to a group of clients. Say you're going to have a meeting with your employees. If you walked into this and you decided, I'm going to approach this like a performance, then I guarantee you, if you look at it like a performance rather than just a simple communication, that will bring a higher engagement. I know this because I do this all the time. I might even look at going to the gym like it's a performance. And if I look at going to the gym like it's a performance, I take a greater pride in what I do. I become more engaged. And especially, as I said, in this time where we've had, I think, a 5% loss of engagement in the last 20 years. And of course, COVID influenced that. I have a lot of stats that I talk about during my presentation. So that is one trick that I've learned, is to look at it like it's a performance, like my daughter does, like my daughter told me to do. And that guarantees greater engagement, and greater engagement guarantees a higher efficacy, more efficiency, and being more effective with your communication. Plus, you just have more fun. And if you think of it like a performance, then you could feel a little bit like a rock star. And you could have a little bit of that rock star swagger. And I show everybody how to do that.
I would not like to leave this conversation, we are almost closing, without listening from you, Mark. Can you share for us the most happier moment you have experienced? Maybe you have many experiences within being happy, but one satisfaction, personal, professional, what could you share for us?
Well, I would say my happiest moments in my life are with my 13-year-old daughter, because we are so close and she's become like my best friend. So just communicating with her and knowing that she's so happy and she's so free and she loves to sing and dance. So she'll get up and she'll sing and dance for me, and we'll talk about songs. She writes songs, so we'll talk about song structure so she can learn. So that's an amazingly extraordinary happy experience for me. A couple of my biggest happy professional experiences: I performed with the band Simple Minds at the Glastonbury Festival in front of 225,000 people. I couldn't see the end of the audience. It was rolling hills of audience. And then I looked over in the middle of the performance, and Peter Gabriel was standing on the side of the stage. And he was my favorite artist at the time. I was in heaven. Felt like pinching myself. I couldn't believe this was happening, that I was playing for nearly 250,000 people, and Peter Gabriel was on the side of the stage watching us perform. I was in ecstasy. A few other experiences. I always dreamed of playing Wembley Stadium. I played Wembley Arena many times, but on the last Pink tour that I did, we played Wembley Stadium for 90,000 people, 2 nights in a row. We could have played 5 more nights, and we were shooting a live video on top of it. So it was like a dream come true to be in that venue, playing for all those people. It was a dream that I had always had. And a very simple dream I've always had was playing at the Forum, the Los Angeles Forum, because they closed it down and it became a place where they were just doing like monster trucks and they were doing swap meets. Then they rebuilt it and opened it back up. And I got a chance to play the Forum, because the Forum is where I used to see all of the bands that were my favorite bands when I was a kid. So those are a few very, very happy moments for me, both professionally and personally.
Thanks for sharing, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mark.
It's my pleasure.
We have already gotten to the 18 minutes, actually 19 minutes.
90 minutes.
But it was great having you with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know I had fun. I always have fun. Cheers. It's all about attitude, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Bueno, amigos, pues hasta luego. Gracias a nombre de La Medir, de Mundo Ejecutivo y de Smart Speakers. Gracias por acompañarnos.